Oh my gosh, guys, I cannot believe it. 2024 is coming to an end. Today is the last day of 2024. I cannot believe it. What a quick year this has been. It felt like I am still in March this year. That's how quick to me 2024 is. I want to say thank you so much for another year for movies. It's been really fun. The more years to come on my movie reviews. So thank you so much for joining me on this journey for this year once again. I cannot wait for 2025. It's going to be a huge year. But now, let's wrap up 2024 with my last end of the year list video that I am doing. I've done my best, I've done my worst, and I've done my disappointing. Now let's get into my surprising movies of 2024. Now, from disappointing from movies that I was excited for and the movies let me down, this list is the total opposite. These are the movies that I wasn't looking forward to, but they turned out much better than I thought it would. These aren't perfect movies, these aren't the best movies of the year, well, except for my number one, but these movies aren't the greatest movies. These are just the movies that surprised me. I was not expecting these movies to be as fun as it is from the previews and the anticipation. So, no further ado, guys, you know how this list works. Let's get right into my top 10 most surprising movies of 2024. Now, I'm going to start off with my number 10 with a movie that critics didn't like, but I personally enjoyed, and I'm surprised this movie doesn't get much credit as it deserves. Coming into my number 10 is The Lord of the Rings, The War of the Rohirrim. Now, this is coming from the guy that is a fan of the Lord of the Rings films. I have not read the books whatsoever. The way I see this movie, I saw this movie as a really simple and safe war film. I was excited for this movie. I love the Lord of the Rings movies. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is some of my favorite movies of all time. And when I heard they're taking Lord of the Rings into an anime form, I'm like, okay, let's see how it is. And I thought this is a really simple, safe war film that I enjoyed it from start to finish. I thought the characters are great, the villains are great. And what surprised me about this movie is that a lot of people were very mixed on this film. Some people liked this film, some people didn't like this film. The action is really well done. I can see that this movie plays a bit too safe. But other than that, I think this is a very good animated film with some beautiful animation. And I thought the way this movie structures, I thought it's done really well in my personal opinion. I wish this movie gets a bit more credit than it deserves. It's not a perfect movie, but it's definitely one of the better Lord of the Rings films in a while. I'd rather watch this honestly than the Hobbit trilogy. Coming to my number 9 is Kung Fu Panda 4. Now we're going to get into the movies that I wasn't looking forward to, but it turned out better than I thought it was going to be. And the biggest example is Kung Fu Panda 4. I was not excited for this film. Why? Because I thought the trilogy felt completed. It's sort of like with Toy Story. You know, Toy Story 3 felt like a great conclusion to the trilogy. I thought Kung Fu Panda 3 is a good conclusion to this trilogy. I love the Kung Fu Panda movies. Kung Fu Panda 1 is one of my favorite DreamWorks films of all time. I loved all those 3 movies, so when I saw the trailer of the 4th one, I'm like, this looks like a very unnecessary 4th installment. Now, even though Kung Fu Panda 4 is my least favorite still in the series, it's like Toy Story 4, I still feel like it's a really fun movie. Jack Black is still great as Paul. Awkwafina, one of the better voice acting characters I've seen. I thought she's awesome in the film. I thought the chameleon villain is actually pretty cool in this movie in my personal opinion. I thought the action was fun, the story was fun enough to enjoy. It's definitely my least favorite in the 4th installment, but thank God this movie turns out much better than I thought it was going to be. This is just a fun installment in the Kung Fu Panda series. And of course, Tenacious D's Hit Me Baby One More Time gets stuck in my head ever since I saw the movie. Coming to my number 8 is Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Now, legacy sequels has been pretty big recently right now. But with comedy legacy sequels, they haven't been that great. Like Coming to America, for example, which also stars Eddie Murphy. So of course, I was not excited for the 4th Beverly Hills Cop movie. And this is coming from a guy that isn't the hugest Beverly Hills Cop fan. I love the first one. I thought the second one's okay. The third one absolutely sucked. So I thought Axel F is definitely going to suck. No, this is definitely one of the better ones in the series. I think Eddie Murphy, this is one of his better performances. I cannot believe it. Eddie Murphy has still got it as Axel Foley. He was still the lovable, sarcastic cop that we still loved from the previous movies. The original cast is great, and what surprised me the most, the new cast actually does a really good job. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was great. The daughter in this movie is really good. The father-daughter aspect of the film really touched me, surprisingly. It's definitely paying homage to the original Beverly Hills Cop movie, but it also has a story that I still really enjoyed. I would rather watch this than the second one and third one, honestly. I think this movie is the Beverly Hills Cop sequel that we have deserved, and it's one of the better comedy legacy sequels that we have ever gotten. Coming to my number 7 is Mean Girls. Now, Some people hate this film, and I completely understand. Me, I was not excited for this film at all, because of course, the original Mean Girls is a classic. It's very untouchable. But this is an adaptation of the musical version that is sort of a remake of this movie. So, I was curious to see what it was, even though I was not pumped for this movie. I thought the trailers did not impress me whatsoever. I'm like, why do we need this? And there are some things that really surprised me in this new Mean Girls. Is it as good as the original? Absolutely not. But definitely what surprised me is actually the musical sequences, how it's structured. The filmmaking in this movie is actually really well done. This movie is trying to be its own thing, not trying to beat the original Mean Girls, because this is basically Mean Girls from start to finish. It's still the same movie, but just with musical aspects. But the musical aspects adds a bit of a new flair to this movie and makes it its own thing. The performances are pretty well done in the film, and I thought the story, it's easy to come apart. Even though it's not as good as the first one, it's still one of those stories where you're watching, yeah, I can still watch this. It's a great story, but definitely the musical sequences is what really surprised me about this movie. The way they use the aspect ratio, the style of these musical sequences, it helped make this movie at least very fun and entertaining. Coming to my number 6 is Twisters. Now, this is coming from the guy that loves the first Twister, and thinking the sequel is not going to be as fun as the original was, but somehow Twisters did it. I think Twister is still a better movie than Twisters, but when I saw the trailer for Twisters, I'm like, okay, it looks fun enough. Let's see how we go with it. And this movie turns out as literally a right representation of a summer blockbuster. This movie knows exactly what it is. It's technically a reboot of Twister, not a sequel, and it felt like its own thing. Daisy Edgar Jones is great in the film. Glenn Powell is a badass in this film. Anthony Ramos is also great in the film. David Corenswet also plays a really good dick in the film, and I cannot wait to see him as Superman. But absolutely the tornado scenes. They kept the spirit of the first Twister movie. Some scenes they make it fun, some scenes they make it really freaking intense. The movie knows how to have fun, and that's what really surprised me about Twisters. It knows what it's trying to be, so as a film, it turns out to be a really fun movie. It tries to keep up the spirit of the first Twister movie, and I thought it does that really freaking well. This movie definitely turns out better than I thought it was going to be. Now we're up to the top 5. These are the movies that absolutely surprised me. These are the movies that I was definitely not looking forward to, but they turned out much better than I thought it was going to be. Coming to my number 5 is Bad Boys Ride or Die. Seriously, why do we need a 4th Bad Boys movie? I literally love Bad Boys for Life, and now they're making a 4th one, I'm like, why? But man, this movie surprised me in a whole new way. I would even say this turns out to be now my favorite in the series. This movie just ups the stakes for Bad Boys for Life, and this movie's definitely just more fun. I feel like Bad Boys for Life felt more like a film in a way because it has more drama in it. This movie is definitely the funniest that I have seen Bad Boys, especially Martin Lawrence. Oh my god, his arc in this film is absolutely hysterical. I was killing myself laughing the whole way through. This is definitely his funniest movie that I've seen in a long time, but Will Smith and Martin Lawrence still have an excellent chemistry in this film. The action is fun. It still keeps up the game of the first 3 Bad Boys movie. It is one of those movies that, like Twisters, it knows exactly what it is. And from the trailers of this film, I'm like, this just feels unnecessary. This is definitely going to be a cash grab. No, this movie still keeps the stakes up from the other Bad Boys movies. If they made a 5th one, I would have been okay with it because these movies at least know what it's trying to be. And I just like to see Will Smith and Martin Lawrence be together on screen because they're just fantastic together. Coming to my number 4 is Speak No Evil. Now, the reason why I was not excited for this film because of how shit Blumhouse is this year with Night Swim, Imaginary, and especially Afraid. Who remembers that shit? Definitely those movies are both on my worst list. So after those movies, I'm like, you know what? I have given up on Blumhouse. I've given up on those movies, so I was not excited for Speak No Evil because I thought it was going to be another cash grab. This is a remake of the original, which I have seen before the movie, and I thought the original is really well done. Thank God that this movie is its own movie. It's not a copy and paste of the original film, and this turns out as a huge surprise for me. I had a fun time with this remake. I think James McAvoy really made this movie. He is fantastic in this movie. He's always good at playing creeps in movies in some way, and he definitely does that really well in this film. Mackenzie Davis is also great in this film. Yeah, the film is more stupid than the original is with some decision making, but this film is still very entertaining. The story is very easy to follow. There are some scenes that are very uncomfortable. Not as uncomfortable as the original, surprisingly. This film takes it a bit more easier. The third act is definitely different than the original film was. But the film is just fun, you know? It's a fun horror movie that's very simple to follow. Coming into my number 3 is Smile 2. Now, This is one of those sequels that I find it very unnecessary at first. I'm like, the first Smile is good. I enjoyed it. But do we need a sequel to this film? But what really surprised me about Smile 2 is that this movie is better than the first one. This movie absolutely ups its stakes more than the first movie, especially with Naomi Scott. This is one of her best performances that I have ever seen her in. There are so many scenes in Smile 2 that was on the edge of my seat. This is definitely more scarier than the original film. This film has much more stakes than the original film, which is what a sequel should do. There are so many moments in the film that I was panicking with Naomi Scott in the film. You definitely took from her perspective in the film, even though, yeah, it's the same film, but just from a pop star's perspective. But it still kept the energy to make it its own thing. It's like another Smile story in the series, and after this ending, if they do a Smile 3, I am really curious to see what is going to happen. And the cinematography absolutely improves from the first one as well. Oh my god, there's so many beautiful shots in this film. This is one of those sequels that definitely is one of the biggest surprises of the year. Was not expecting this movie to be good, but man, this is definitely one of the most surprising horror films that I have seen this year. Now, 2 and 1 are the movies that surprised me the most, because number 2 is a movie that I cannot believe critics were harsh on this movie, because this movie, seriously, is one of the better family films that I have seen in a very long time. You've guessed it. Coming to my number 2 is If. John Krasinski. I love A Quiet Place movies, and I appreciate him for doing something different, and he directed this film about imaginary friends, and like Ryan Reynolds says, it's trying to be like a live-action Pixar film. It definitely is. This is one of the most unappreciated movies that I have seen this year. I feel like audiences love this movie more than critics do, because this movie absolutely is a great film for families. This movie teaches lessons to both kids and adults alike. The voice casting is great. Ryan Reynolds is great in the film. The main girl in the film is fantastic. This movie made me laugh. This movie made me cry in all sorts of ways. It's a movie that I just don't understand why the critics are giving this movie a harsh rating. Like, I think this movie got like a 40% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I walked out of this film going, this could have been in my best list. This is one of my favorite family films that I've seen in a long time. But I'm going to put it in my surprising list because this film deserves much more better than the critics presented. It's literally a right representation of what a family film should be. And John Krasinski, man, keep directing. You're definitely very talented. But my number 1, this is the movie that absolutely surprised me the most. This is the last number 1 of 2024, and we're going to end this off with a bang. This movie, I was not excited for at all. I was definitely not excited for. I was expecting this movie to be terrible. But man, this movie blew my mind. Coming into my number 1 is Transformers 1. We can all agree that we hate the previews for this film, still do. The trailers of Transformers 1 look absolutely crap. My god, I saw this movie in IMAX 3D as an advanced screening after I saw The Wild Robot, seeing how this film goes. Not just that this is how you do an animated film for this year, this is how you do a Transformers film right. The animation is fantastic. The rivalry story between Optimus Prime and Megatron, how they became from friends to enemies, is so well done. Mufasa the Lion King learned from this movie. It does that right. The action scenes are fantastic. The voiceover also really surprised me. Chris Hemsworth, Brian Tyree Henry are fantastic in this movie. At first I'm like, what the heck is this casting? They are fantastic in the film. Keegan-Michael Key is also great as Bumblebee. Scarlett Johansson is also really good in the film. The villains of the film is also really good. The motivation between Optimus Prime and Megatron is how it should have been written for a Transformers prequel. But the animation looks absolutely stunning in this movie. It looks so good on 4K. I got this movie on 4K, rewatched it again. Still think The Wild Robot is my favorite animated film of the year, but Transformers 1 came so close. It's definitely how you do a Transformers movie right. It's definitely how you do a prequel right. It's definitely how you do an anime film right. But these trailers are some of the worst trailers that I have seen. Come on, the trailers could have been so much better. I was not excited for this film like everyone else. And you cannot lie, this movie turns out better than we all thought it was going to be. Transformers 1 is definitely my biggest surprise of 2024. I love this movie, definitely the best Transformers that I've seen in a long time. Definitely one of the biggest surprises of 2024. Man, guys, that is it. This is my last video, guys, for 2024, and we're ending off with a surprising bang. These are my top 10 most surprising movies of the year. I just want to say to you guys, thank you for another year of movies. 2025 is coming now. Now I'm going to celebrate the new year. It's going to be fantastic. I cannot believe it. we're in 2025 tomorrow, and it's my 10th year of doing YouTube. It's absolutely insane. So, let me know to contemplate everything. What are your favorite movies of the year? What are your worst movies of the year? What are your most disappointing? And what are your most surprising? Name all of those in the comments below. Make sure you guys follow me on the social media links down below. Keep contacting with me, and make sure you guys subscribe to my channel for my latest movie reviews and other movie related content. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great happy new year. And for the last time in 2024, have a nice day.